بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما رب العالمين. اللهم أعنا على ذكرك وشكرك وحسن عبادتك. أما بعد, we have heard ibnalqayyim rahimahullah last time explain to us the progression of sin, if you remember, how it comes into a person's life, how it infects. So he said the first is a glance, the look, and then the thought, and then the step or the speech, and then the sin. And we said last time that this is extremely helpful, whether it is for you as a person who is trying to block away sin, or for a teacher, a parent who is trying to educate his child, his students, on how to stop those sins. So when you know how it starts, and it starts very small, you can intervene. As we said last week, we could intervene at every point, but especially at the very earliest of points, which is the idea to fight sin before it takes hold. It's easier then, when it's just a thought, or when it's just a look, before it develops into something that is far more serious, and it's then almost impossible to stop. We say almost impossible because it can always stop. So today, inshallah Rabbil Alameen, we're going to deal with the first station. And that station is the station of the glance, the looks that a person should control. And Ibn al-Qayyim, after saying that you have to be the doorkeeper when it comes to all of these stations, the one who preserves them and guards them from the intervention of shaitan, he says, وَأَكْثَرُ مَا تَدْخُلُ الْمَعَاصِي عَلَى الْعَبْدِ مِنْ هَذِهِ الْأَبْوَابِ الْأَرْبَعِ. He says sins typically, usually come mostly into a person's life from these doors. The door of the glance, and then the thought, and then the words, and then the act itself. قال فنذكر في كل باب منها فصلا يليق به. So we're going to devote a chapter suitable to each. قال فأما اللحظات. Now the glances, and that's what we'll be dealing with inshallah today. He says the glances, فهي رائد الشهوة ورسولها. He says it is the leader of the desire, meaning it what leads to desire, and its messenger, what brings it about. وَحِفْظُهَا أَصْلُ حِفْظِ الْفَرْجِ. And he says, and safeguarding the look is the foundation of safeguarding the private parts. So now you understand that whether it's for you or someone that you're trying to educate, if you are trying to protect the private parts, trying to protect from zina or anything close or related to it or like it, you want to protect yourself there, how do you start? Now you're not clueless, right? Now you understand where things come from, how they progress. So how does a sin develop into a sin? He says, take it back to its inception, to its beginning, to the seed that makes it so. He says, what is it? He says, the look. You want to safeguard the private part, you have to go back to what you're looking at. That's where the battle begins. That's where the invasion starts. So if you are able to block this, to purify it, it is much easier than to protect the private parts. If you are weak with the first, then you are weak with the second and the third, and then you will be completely defenseless in front of the shaitan. قال فمن أطلق بصره, who lets his eyesight loose, looking at whatever he wants or she wants, أورد نفسه موارد المهلكات أو الهلكات. He says he will lead himself to ruin. Meaning you're going to bring this ruin to yourself. You just keep looking at whatever you want to look at without restraint, without thinking about the benefit and the harms of what you will see. He says you will lead yourself to ruin. He says وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لا تتبع النظرة النظرة He says, don't follow a look, the first look, with a second look. فَإِنَّمَا لَكَ الْأُولَى. The first one is yours, وَلَيْسَتْ لَكَ الْأُخْرَى. But the second is not. Meaning, the first one, the accidental, you're not accounted for. But the second, you are. And again here, subhanAllah, if you just kind of pause a little bit and think about what the Prophet ﷺ is saying, he's even breaking down how you look at things and differentiating between the accidental and the intentional, which is something that we are conscious of but not conscious of. We don't break this apart in our heads. But the accidental is unlike the intentional. So when you're just walking and you don't have a sinful thought in your head, you're not walking outside seeking sin, directing your head seeking sin. And then you accidentally glance at, fall upon something that is haram. And then you look away. Now you look away either intentionally, because, oh, this is haram, I'm not going to look at it. You look away intentionally or naturally, meaning because you are not fixated on it, you just happen to simply notice it and you keep moving, right? But then there's a thought in your head, right? What did I just see? That's attractive. That's intriguing. That's beautiful. So now there is a desire. There is some sort of desire there. But the thing is, it will not stay with you because this was an accidental, quick glance. Meaning you can overcome it. Will not leave an imprint, will not leave much of an impact. It's just an intrigue. You're curious. What did I just see? There was something beautiful. There was something haram. There was something curious. So that's something interesting. So the first look, he's saying, alayhi salatu wasalam, that's yours. Meaning, you're not responsible for it. There is no malice. There's no evil behind it. You're not responsible. And because you're not responsible, it's not going to harm you as much. That if you were to fight the desire to look again, you're not going to be thinking about this thing for a long time. It will leave you. It will leave you, right? But when you surrender to the urge of, let me just take another look just to verify, just to make sure, just to see how beautiful this thing is. It says, when you do this, that second look and the third and the fourth is the thing that will be your demise. That will destroy you. Because that is going to leave an impact. That will pollute you. That will enrage or enliven your desire and inflame it. Because now you've decided to look with intention. So that's the first one. There's an intention behind it. And with focus. It's not accidental. There's a focus. And it's prolonged. It's not brief. But you're looking and examining the details. And what is here, what is not there. How beautiful is it? How attainable is it? How can I get it? All these things start developing into your head. So subhanAllah, the Prophet ﷺ here, breaks apart something that in our heads may not be distinct. Even though if one were to ask you, you would say, yeah, I know the difference between them, but I haven't thought about the fact that I should separate between them. The accidental from the intentional. Right? The innocent from the evil. So if you walk the path of the second and the third and the fourth look, you become a victim. You be enslaved by what you see. But if you just leave it to, I just saw this and it's wrong, and you keep walking, you say, no good is going to come from this. Why do you want to look at it? And you keep walking, you're not going to be thinking about it for long. So you must fight that curiosity that could be natural in us, just to keep looking, by saying to yourself, no, that is going to hurt me, as we will see. And he says, وَفِي الْمُسْنَدِ عَنْهُ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. And this hadith is weak, but it's not without benefit. Right? قال النظرة سهم مسموم من سهام إبليس. He says the glance, the look, is a poisoned arrow from the arrows of Iblis. فَمَنْ غَضَّ بَصَرَهُ عَنْ مَحَاسِنِ امْرَأَةٍ. Whoever diverts his gaze from the beauty of a female for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal, Allah will put in his heart a sweetness that he will continue to find till the day that he meets Allah Azza wa Jal. Meaning whoever turns away from looking at a beautiful woman for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal, instead of that thing, Allah will deposit in his heart, the heart of that man, a sweetness that this person will continue to enjoy until he dies. Now, we said it's weak, but it's not without its benefit. And the first benefit from it is that to consider any look as a deliberate act by Iblis to attack you. The haram look. Right? Because, see, on the one hand, let's say for instance, because he's talking about a beautiful woman. That beautiful woman who's walking may have no intent at all to misguide. Right? She's just simply beautiful. She's wearing the hijab, she's wearing shoes. Nothing that she is doing is inappropriate. But the fact is that she's female, the fact is that she's beautiful. So if you look at her, right, there's no intent on her behalf to misguide you. But who is trying to misguide you? Iblis. So there is someone who's trying to harm you, maybe not her. But Iblis is there. And he's gonna use that innocent, what could be an innocent encounter, against you. By suggesting, by inspiring, by plotting against you to kill you. And if you look at it as a poisoned arrow, I mean he's throwing things at you intentionally. Intentionally. Whatever you see, sometimes even when it's not bad, he'll twist it so it'll be bad. So he could use it against you. So it's a poisoned arrow continuously being shot at you. And he's using your eyes for that. That's why you need shields and protection. Now, why did I emphasize that the person may not want to harm you, but Iblis actually wants to harm you? Because if you consider today, the fact that a lot of things out there are intended to harm you, not only by Iblis, by others as well. Like what you're seeing is intended to affect you, manipulate you, misguide you, take advantage of you. It's not innocent. A lot of what you see today is intentional, right? It is there to actually misguide you. It is there to actually enslave you to that desire. So when you consider that, no, this is not innocent, then you will be smarter, hopefully, than the people who are trying to attack you. It's saying it wasn't placed like an ad is not just innocently placed in front of you. Right? With a woman, beautiful woman, presenting the product to you. That's not innocent, is it? There is psychology behind it. And I don't want to overpraise people by imagining that they are all, geniuses. No, but they try to employ some psychology in it. What colors do you like? What music do you like? What phrases do you like? That's going to enter your mind and heart and stay there. It's not innocent. So ads are not innocent. Right? Articles are not innocent. Presentation of information, of news is not innocent, is it? Right? Like when you know about politics, you know that the way that they present a story and the words that they use and how they frame it and phrase it is absolutely intentional in painting a person as a victim or as an aggressor, right? So it's not innocent. So you cannot just simply now today just look at things and think they are as they seem. No, there is a whole system designed to deceive you. Right? So when you look at it like that, you say, I don't want to be a victim. I don't want to be deceived. I don't want to be duped. I don't want to be a victim of shaitan who's trying to poison me. And all the brothers or the helpers of the shaitan, they're trying to do the same thing. So then you become smarter. You wise up and you say, I'm not going to make them manipulate me. There's an intention behind it. Right? And again, let's go back to this example again of that beautiful woman. So what could a beautiful woman at that time do to entice? compared to what they're doing today. What can she do? Dress nicely, put on some makeup, but the makeup that they had then doesn't compare to what you have today. It can completely transform a person. You will not even know that this is the real person anymore. Completely. Forget about digital and manipulation and enhancement. This is another total story. But just the person, if you look at them, and the way that they could have a person dressed today, their makeup is unimaginable compared to what people had before. So if people before could be tempted, what do you think about today? The level of temptation today is really high, is really great, right? And that is if you just see a person in front of you, right? The dress, nobody in the past could afford a dress like the dresses we have today. Makeup like the makeup we have today. Makeup, her hair as we can do today. She could look like something out of this world. How could this not be tempting? So the level of temptation today is much greater. Now add to it any digital manipulation. What you see that you're behind the screen and they're in front of the screen. What is in between you is layers and layers of deception. Right? So think about how much effort they are putting to capture you and to enslave you. This person that you may look at, and I'm explaining this so that when you see an entertainer, someone who is so beautiful, so glamorous, through that digital media, you don't be impressed by it. So think about the team that they have that makes this person as glamorous and as beautiful as they are. Right? And think about whether if you were to meet this person in real life, whether that would impress you or not. Because they're not going to have that team with them that makes them beautiful. So this entertainer, this actor, this actress, why do they look the way that they look? What do they have that a normal person doesn't have? And then when you start comparing average people, or your wife, or your husband, to them, they will never live up. Why? Because this person has a personal trainer, right? Right? And has a nutritionist, and has someone who does their makeup, and someone who does their hair, and someone who designs their clothes, and someone who tells them what to say and how to say it and how to speak, and there's an accent or speech therapist or a coach. Who can afford all of this? Right? So what you have in front of you is what? Fake. Really fake. And as I said, if you were to meet that person in real life, and if someone were to say what's your dream? I just want to marry this beautiful woman who is famous. And if you were to marry her, you're not going to stay married to her. Because she's not the person that you saw or believed to be. But it's that level of manipulation. And it's very intentional. So when you know it's fake, you're not going to believe it. Right? And you want to take it a step further now. Let's take it one step further. Just I want you to understand how we're living in a time of fitna. And so everything that ibnalqayyim rahimahullah is saying applies much more today than it applied at the time of Rasulullah alayhi salatu wasalam. Though it did apply then. But today you really have to be watchful. So today the thing that could be a potential, right, is AI, or artificial intelligence that is beautiful but completely fake. Right? So there are influencers today, like we already have them, influencers today that are completely AI or manufactured. And they have hundreds of thousands of followers. So there's a female, I'm not telling you this for you to go and seek them out, but there's an influencer, at least I know of one, an influencer, a female. There's a team behind her who manufactures the image, manufactures a life. Oh, she likes to go to the gym. she shops here, she does this, she does that, she's beautiful, different poses. And she's what? Absolutely fake. Yet she has followers. Right? And then you think to yourself, what are you following? Like when someone tells you she goes to the gym, you understand that that's not real. There's no real person behind this. Or she buys this, she eats this, she takes care of her health. What are you talking about? There's nothing. They're just making up a story. What are you following? So we're in a sense, we're being really manipulated, and we understand that we're being manipulated, and we're fine with this. Right? And I want to push it one step further also, and we're saying that, because I was just listening to this, it says, what happens if people start having girlfriends that are AI? And the level of manipulation and attachment, because he says, if you are a teenager, but not even a teenager, but someone who needs love, and AI can read you, right? Especially if it's well designed. Maybe not yet, maybe now. But if it's really well designed, they can read you, and they can be the sweetest thing, and they know what you need and what you do not need, and how to talk to you. They draw you in. This is how they're designed. So you would want to love to talk to them more than real people. And you're so attached to them more than real people. And you get emotionally hijacked. And when you get emotionally hijacked, it's hard for you to come back. So go back here to what we were talking about, which is whatever you are seeing is intended to deceive you and to enslave you and to misguide you. And if you know that Iblis is behind it, and if you know that there are some really bad people or at least unethical people behind it, you say to yourself, I don't want to be their victim. I don't want to be their lab rat for them to do whatever they want with me. Stay away from this. This is haram. This is wrong. Otherwise, it will destroy me. The other part of this hadith, we said it's weak. He says, if you turn away from something that Allah Azza wa Jal hates, Allah gives you something beautiful in return. That principle is absolutely right. That is, a person who's going to fill his head with filth or with junk or with garbage has no place in it for what Allah loves. It's crowded. But if you keep the haram out, obviously, right, there's a place for the halal. And Allah Azza wa Jal rewards you for saying no to something that He hates. He gives you something better in His place. So maybe you'll feel more of Allah's love, more of the sweetness of ibadah, more of a desire to do good things, or at least be protected from bad ones. He continues that the Prophet ﷺ said also, غُضُّوا أَبْصَارَكُمْ وَاحْفَظُوا فُرُوجَكُمْ. He said, lower your gaze and protect your private parts. And he said, alayhi salatu wassalam, إِيَّاكُمُ الْجُلُوسَ عَلَى الطُّرُقَاتِ. This is a really interesting hadith, and you should think about how relevant it is today. He says, إِيَّاكُمُ الْجُلُوسَ عَلَى الطُّرُقَاتِ. He says, beware of sitting in the pathways or along those pathways, a road, pathway. He says, O Messenger of Allah, these are the places where we gather. We have to sit there. So he said, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, if you have to, فَأَعْطُوا الطَّرِيقَ حَقَّهِ. Give the pathway its right. They say, O Prophet of Allah, what is the right? He says, غَضُّ الْبَصَرِ. Lowering the gaze, كَفُّ الْأَذَى. Stopping your harm, وَرَدُّ السَّلَامِ. Giving back the salam. And in other narrations that are not mentioned here, and commanding good and forbidding evil. Right? So basically, what is this hadith saying? He says, the Prophet ﷺ, he says, don't sit on the road. Right? And people, I think we still have this still today, if not in this city, in other cities, but it may be in this city as well. So when the weather is good, and there's a place where people can gather, around this corner, there's a spot, and people could sit together, and they could start talking. And that becomes a popular spot for them to sit and talk. Right? Neighbors, friends. So the Prophet ﷺ in the beginning, he said, what? Don't sit there. Don't sit there. And they had a reason, of course, for them to gather there, because you can imagine that their homes were what? Small. Their homes were small, not as big as the homes of, even the smallest home that you have today was bigger than the homes that they had then. So their homes there weren't big. So, but said, "O Messenger of Allah, that's where we sit, that's where we gather, that's where we convene, that's where we talk to each other. Like we have to." He says, if you have to, then you have to fulfill certain conditions for that to be permissible. What are these conditions? So he began with غض البصر, lowering your gaze, because you're going to see people coming back and forth, back and forth. Men, women, children. You have to lower your gaze. Don't harm people. Give the salam or reply when salam is given. And the last one that we said that is not mentioned here, he says, if you see a mistake, you correct it. الأمر بالمعروف والنهي عن المنكر. If you see a mistake, don't ignore it. You need to correct it. Because you put yourself in that condition, that situation where you're watching everybody, what they're doing and what they're saying. This, wallahu a'lam, if you want to think about it, this is the closest thing that they had to being online. Right? Though it is not close. But that's the closest thing. Because when you go online, what do you see? All of these things, people coming and going, commenting, talking. This person is dressed this way, this person said that. So as if you want to, let's paraphrase it for today. Let's reimagine it for today. As if the Prophet ﷺ is saying, don't go online. Isn't it? Don't go online. Because the same thing. Don't go and sit outside. He says, don't go online. We say, oh Prophet of Allah, but we have to. I need email, read the news, right? Talk to so-and-so. I need to, like there's a level of need. He said, if you're going to do this, then do it, but only if what? You lower your gaze. You don't harm anyone, right? Give salam or reply, give the reply of salam and correct mistakes when you see them. Now if you say, I can't, then what? Withdraw. Right? Because if they were to tell the Prophet ﷺ, oh, we need to sit outside, but we can't lower our gaze, he says, then you can't sit outside. Right? Isn't it? And this, by the way, like if you actually, your friends, your family, you congregate, and you can't lower your gaze, then you're not supposed to congregate outside like this. Go inside. If you're going to stay outside, you be responsible. So if you're going to go online, he's saying you go online as long as you can commit to this. If you cannot commit to this, or as soon as you fail, you withdraw. That's no longer a safe space for you. You're harming yourself. So غض البصر is necessary. And if this tells you that it's important to investigate where you are placing yourself, physically or virtually. Because where you put yourself is where you're going to be drawn, your eyes are going to be drawn to look at and inspect. Right? So if you're sitting physically, let's say, in a innocent, safe, wholesome place, you're only going to see nice things. If you go to a place that is going to have a lot of nudity in it, a lot of nakedness, a lot of lewd behavior, a lot of obscenity, how can you lower your gaze? How can you lower your gaze? And if is by necessity, you have to be in a place where it has some of this, right? You go in, you do what you need, and you leave, right? You need to buy something, let's say. You go, you purchase, you buy that thing, but you don't linger looking around and investigating and looking at who's dressed and this is short thing and this is the latest fashion and you just having fun visually. You don't linger like that. Where's غض البصر? Where's lowering the gaze? So you are poisoning yourself when you do this. So if it physically matters, then it virtually matters as well. What social media app? Who to follow and who not to follow? How long do you stay? When do you catch yourself by saying, wait, why am I watching it? It's like you've been led to watch one thing, then followed by another, and before you know it, this is definitely haram, if not wasteful. Why am I doing this? So, as long as the thing is haram, you have failed in your online existence, your online interaction. So remember this. And remember that online life is not real life. Online interaction is not real interaction. The fact that we have focused most of our time on our online activity does not mean that that is real life. And we have to rediscover, all of us as a society, to rediscover what it means to actually live and what it means to actually have real interactions with people rather than fake behind screen ones, right? قال والنظر أصل عامة الحوادث التي تصيب الإنسان. He says, and this glance, this look, is the foundation of most of misfortune or sins that happen to come a person's way. فإن النظرة تولد خطرة. He says, because when you look at something, you develop a thought, and the thought develops an idea, and the idea develops a desire, and the desire develops a will to do something, and when it is determined, the action must happen, unless something stops it. So again, he's telling you, and how it develops. A look, and then that develops into a weak thought, then a stronger thought, then a very strong thought, then a determination. And once you are determined internally to do something, it has to happen. Of course, when you have the urging of the shaitan, who's going to stop you then? You have yourself and the shaitan pushing toward in the same direction. وفي هذا قيل الصبر على غض البصر أيسر من الصبر على ألم ما بعده. He says that's why they've said, he says patience with diverting your gaze is much easier than patience with that pain that follows unrestrained gaze. Meaning restraining your gaze is painful. He says, but compare that to the pain that you're going to receive if you don't restrain it. He says, it's easier to stop the evil and its inception and the beginning rather than after it had become a problem. And he'll explain how it becomes a problem. But he says, if you deal with the problem at the beginning, it's much easier. Then the pain is negligible. Versus if you let it open and mushroom and blossom inside of you, that's different. He said, قال الشاعر, and he does quote few poets here. He says, كل الحوادث مبداها من النظر. He says all sins or all misfortune, they happen to begin with a look, as most fire happens from a small spark. And he says, how many looks have entered the hearts of the onlooker as an arrow that hits from the string and the bow. وَالْعَبْدُ مَا تَامَ ذَا طَرْفٍ يُقَلِّبُهُ. And he says, a person, as long as his eyes are looking at the eyes of the beautiful woman, he is upon danger. يَسُرُّ مُقْلَتَهُ مَا ضَرَّ مُهْجَتَهُ. He says, he pleases his eye with what poisons or kills his heart. It is not welcome to have such joy that brings harm. So he's saying, rahimahullah, he says, you think that it's a simple innocent look, it's not going to harm you. He says, just like a great fire, it starts with a spark, and you never know which spark will start that great fire. Maybe this look will not harm you that much, but there's a second one or a third one or a fourth one of them, especially that you've gotten yourself used to looking. You don't have the habit of saying no to your eyes, right? So where's the discipline? So if you said to your eyes, whatever you want to look at, look at. You say, I'm not going to do anything, but whatever you want to look at, look at. How harmful can that be? He says, there's going to be one of those looks that is going to actually penetrate your heart. And you will not be able to extract it from it. And it will inflame that fire, the fire of desire, and then the fire of sin. And you may not be able to stop it. And he says, if this thing is bringing you some sort of joy, some sort of beauty, remember at the same time that since it is haram, it is bringing you harm. It is bringing you poison to your heart. Why would you welcome such a thing into your life? And he said, وَمِنْ آفَاتِ النَّظَرِ أَنَّهُ يُورِثُ الْحَسَرَاتِ وَالزَّفَرَاتِ وَالْحُرُقَاتِ. He says, from the pitfalls of that unlawful look or unnecessary, unrestrained look, is that it brings on frustrations and regrets. فَيَرَى الْعَبْدُ مَا لَيْسَ قَادِرًا عَلَيْهِ وَلَا صَابِرًا عَنْهُ وَهَذَا مِنْ أَعْظَمِ الْعَذَابِ. So a person will see what he cannot attain, and he cannot be patient with not having. And that is part of the greatest torment. That you will see what you have no patience to stay away from, and no patience or no ability to get. Yani, He says, this is torment, and you are tormenting yourself. By what? He says, you're looking at something that you cannot get, and you don't have patience to stay away from. So why are you looking? And by the way, this is not just about the haram per se, but also about the unnecessary halal that you look at, and it brings that type of regret. So you are of a particular income, a particular status in society, and you're always looking up at the expensive cars and the expensive brands and the big homes and the palaces and mansions that people have and how much they travel. So when you look at this, what does bring back? What does that bring back? It is what he's talking about, which is what? That frustration and that regret and that agony. Because you are looking at and kind of producing two things. One, you now desire things that you cannot get. You know that you cannot get those things. And you know that anybody in this world, if they just have unrestrained gaze, anyone without exception, they will look at things that they cannot get. Even the richest person. There are things that he cannot get, right? Doesn't matter. He can look at someone who's younger than him. He can not get their youth back. He could look at somebody whom he think, oh, that he's attractive, she's attractive, but they're not attracted to them. There are things that you will never be able to get. Never. Even if you are the wealthiest person, richest person. So you cannot get it, but now because you're looking, you're not patient. You can't stay away from it. You want it. He says that's the agony. So that's an agony with halal, but that's an agony definitely with haram. So you look at someone, okay, can you marry her? No. The more that you look, the more that you are attracted, the more that you're in love, especially if you want to talk to her. Again, can you marry her? No. So why are you looking? Why are you tormenting yourself? Are you sane? That's what you should say to yourself. Are you sane? Like somebody who knows that he cannot afford this expensive bag, unnecessary, lavishly expensive bag. But every day he goes, in front of the store and looks at it. Isn't that torment? But you know that you can't afford it. And you know really it's not worth that much. And you don't really need it. Why you keep looking at it? What's the remedy here? To stop looking. Even if you're attracted, you're thinking about it. This is basically stop looking. Because the more that you keep looking, the sicker it makes you. Right? The more you look, the sicker it makes you. So stop looking. And if you stop looking, you will forget. You will forget. But you'll agonize in the beginning. And he'll mention some poems here that are relevant. He said he'll agonize in the beginning, but that's fine. If you just are patient with that pain, it will go away, inshallah. Right? وقال الشاعر وكنت متى أرسلت طرفك رائدا لقلبك يوما أتعبتك المناظر. That's the same idea. He says you will see, if you have unrestrained glances, you will see that the thing which you cannot get all of it and you cannot be patient to stay away from. Right? So he says why the torment? قال وكم من أرسل لحظاته فما أقلعت إلا وهو يتشحط بينهن قتيلا. He says how many people have let their eyesight loose, their eyes loose, and what they brought them killed them, figuratively. He says يا ناظرا ما أقلعت لحظاته. He says when you look at things and your gaze had caused your death or your killing, you are twisting in your blood. That's the image. قال ولي من أبيات. He says, and I have these verses of poetry. قال مل السلامة فاغتتت لحظاته وقفا على طلل يظن جميلا. He says he's tired of safety, so he looked at a ruin. He looked at a ruin that he thinks is beautiful, and he continued to look at it until that killed him, and he is twisting, turning in his blood. What's interesting, subhanallah, is when he said here, مَلَّ السَّلَامَةَ, he is tired of safety. He's bored. And that is another reason why people look. which is what? Boredom. So why do we go online most of the time, right? It's not that right because we need it, to be honest, right? And if you really want to separate the time when you're doing actually positive work, good work, that needs you to be there, versus a time where you're just aimlessly drifting here and there, right? And watching whatever. What is the reason that you're looking? It's that, boredom, right? It happens with that. There's no intention, there is no purpose, it's just boredom. And the problem with that is that if you are bored and you're just kind of launching into this world without an objective, without a framework, without parameters, you're going there innocently, but the person on the other hand, or whoever is on the other hand, is not really innocent. Again, you're being used. There's an intention on the other side, but you're just open to anything. Just show me anything. Just make me laugh. The latest prank, the latest trend, the latest fad. Just show me something, right? And you think it's just normal. It's not normal. You're being manipulated, right? And there's an algorithm that is playing with you and is taking advantage of you and is making money off of you. And you are the product and you are being consumed. You're not consuming, you're being consumed. They're making money. And if you think it's innocent, and it's not innocent. And you never should think of it as something that is innocent. With every frame, with everything that you are seeing, you are being studied, right? You're being studied and you are being manipulated. There's someone behind. So here is where you have to deal with boredom. If you're bored, what do you do? And that's the question that you have to answer. Like, if I'm bored, okay, good. What do you do? Do you read? Do you eat? Do you exercise? Do you talk to your friends? Or if you're going to go online, is it a deliberate, careful foray into that online world, or is it aimless? If it's aimless, you're going to see something haram. And your mind is going to rot, seeing all those mindless activities. But if it is intentional, it's very different. I'm going to listen to this, I'm going to watch this. You know whom to follow and what do you want from them. And you know that I'm there for this, and once it's done, I'm gone. So it has to be deliberate. Cannot be just simply I'm bored. And boredom, by the way, is a killer. You know that people commit acts of haram just because they are bored, right? Just because they are bored. What do we do? Let's steal something. Exciting, right? Let's harass this person. Let's bully them. Why? Exciting. Online or in real life. Exciting. Try something new. Some of them, right, would have zina. Why? I was bored. It's boredom, seriously. It's just boredom, like just bored. So they'll do this, right? They will sleep with someone because they're just bored. Right? It's just boredom. So you gotta engage yourself, engage your mind, and be careful not give that place to the shaitan. No. Another verses, he says, also the composition of ibnalqayyim, Ya ramiyan bisihami lahdi mushtahida. He says, the one who is trying to look at things, beautiful woman, let's say, says, you're the one who's being killed, so don't throw these arrows. He says, and then you're sending it to bring you something which is bringing you a cure, it is actually bringing you harm. And he says, وَأَعْجَبُ مِنْ ذَلِكَ. He says, what is more marvelous than that? He says that the look will injure the heart. And he will keep looking and injuring his heart, and that continuous injury does not stop him from repeating those looks. And he says here, مَا زِلْتَ تُتْبِعُ نَظْرَةً فِي نَظْرَةٍ. He says you continue to look one look after the other, following every beautiful man or woman, and you think that this is the remedy to your injury. And indeed it is an injury upon injury. So you've slaughtered yourself with these looks, so the heart now is suffering because of it. And here he's pointing here, rahimahullah, to something interesting, which is what? A person, and especially as you progress towards the end when it comes to ishq or to comes to love, but it applies to anything, to everything else too. It says when a person, looks at someone and they adore them, they're beautiful, and they say, I'm in love with them. And that look is haram. And as far as they know, when I'm away from them, I'm tormented by the fact that I cannot see them. I need to look at them, because that's the only thing that will bring comfort to my heart. Otherwise, I am in distress. So they will say, let me just look at them again, because if I look at them again, that will give me nourishment, that will give me comfort. Just looking at them is the greatest thing that I can imagine. So he's saying your heart is suffering. Your heart is suffering. You think by that, by repeating these looks, you are curing your heart? No, you're adding to its suffering. You're adding to its injury. You are killing it. So it goes back to what we said. If there is something wrong with what you're looking at, the remedy to it is to stop looking, not to think like, let me take a second look, that will give me more comfort, will give me more beauty. Like, let me just look at this haram again, and after this I won't do it again. Right? Like, let me just take another look. And once I'm satisfied, I'm not coming back to it. It says, who are you fooling? It's easier to stop after the first look. It's easier to stop after the second look, before the third. You don't say, let me just do this haram, and once I'm done with it, I'm done. Like this is my last haram. He says, no, that's not going to be true. It's going to plant it even firmer in your heart, and it's going to make your heart sicker because of it, and you're more likely to remember it and to haunt you again and again and again, if not now when you are weak. Because sometimes when you're strong and things are okay in your life, you're fine. But when you're really down, the shaitan will come and attack and remind you and bring all of these images. You remember that thing that you used to love, the thing that you used to do, the thing that used to give you joy, the thing that used to distract you, so you don't have to think about this terrible thing that is happening to you. Just give it another glance, just give it another try, just, engage in it again. And you will do this because you have what? Memory. So the more that you enhance your memory of that haram, it's easier to come back to it. So it's saying your heart is sick. You're in love with someone that you cannot marry. But, this could include anything, could cover anything. So you're in love with this, and you want to keep looking at it, that is your sickness. You have to stop looking. Don't deceive yourself by saying that this is my remedy. Right? And since we're talking about looks, right? One of the greatest ills that we have today is pornography. Right? And the people who stand behind it, the one who, design it, make it, publicize it, what have you. I mean, we can say on the one hand that they have an evil intent to destroy society. But if you ask me to prove it, I'll tell you I don't know how to prove it. I know the shaitan wants this, but I don't know how to prove that. But at least what we can all agree to, and it is demonstrable, and it is a fact, is that they want to make money. Isn't it? They absolutely want, no one is going to dispute this. Someone has a website, they don't want to make money? They want to make money. Good. At your expense. Even though you're the victim, even they know that you're the victim. And I want us to understand this so that you understand that this is, we know that it's not innocent, but how vile it is, how destructive it is. And you don't think about it. So, this person, just like tobacco, the people who were selling tobacco, cigarettes, they knew that they were killers. They sold it anyway. It means that they didn't really care about you, right? At this, they're going to make it as addictive as possible for you to continue to buy it. And they're going to hide that fact. And they're going to promote it in the best possible ways. They'll hire actors, actresses, singers, what have you, those who will write the best songs in order to deceive you into thinking this is beautiful, for you to buy it. And they know it's killing you, and they don't care whether it's killing you or not. They just want the money. Those who produce pornography and promote it, they know what it's doing to you, and they don't care really about you. Because what they want from you is your attention and your money. And if they have it, damn you, it doesn't really matter. And they'll take advantage of the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. So the harm there is that you're the victim and you're giving them the opportunity to use you. And what are they doing to you is reprehensible. And again, it's not innocent. There's nothing innocent in it, but it's designed. And one thing there that is by design is, if you visit a website, any website by the way, good or bad, what is the thing that that website maker wants from you? Is to stay on the website as long as possible. This is how they make money, right? These are the ads. So if you stay long enough, the longer you stay, the better, right? And not only how long you stay, they want you to keep coming back, right? So the person who watches pornography, right? And there's this dopamine effect. And that dopamine effect means that when you see something new, that newness of it elevates dopamine. So it gets secreted. So you feel this high. And now you've reached a new threshold with dopamine. Right? And you can go and you can search this. There are people who have said this better than I do. You've reached a new threshold, new high with it. So that's the only thing that's going to make you happy. So regular human interaction doesn't rise to that level. Right? Do you know people who play video games and they just can't really interact with people in real life? Because nothing is as loud, as intense, as fast. Right? So now, being married to a regular person is not as attractive because it doesn't give you that newness. It's not novel, not new. So it destroys your ability to have normal relationships. Emotionally, okay? When it comes to your mind, it comes to your heart, and also physically. Like physically, you will not be able to be with them because repeated porn viewing leads to erectile dysfunction. You won't be able to physically be with them. And some experts have said, like we have people who are in their teens, 19, 20, they have erectile dysfunction. They're not in their 40s and 50s. So if a person has this, they're trapped. There's a way out of it, but they're trapped. Because on the one hand, they're addicted. And on the other hand, they can't physically be with a person, so they decide to themselves, I can never get married. I want you to understand how sinister that is. I can never get married. I have to live alone for the rest of my life. Just be trapped with this. So that's one thing that happens. So, but in addition to it is what? So you have this dopamine rush. So you have to keep seeing things that are new. And people over there, right, who design it, they understand that you need to keep seeing new things and to experience new things. So they'll put next to whatever this person was watching, another thing that pushes the envelope a little bit to the side. And then once he sees it, and in the beginning he says, what is this? That's strange, that's odd, that's this. But if it increases their attraction or hormones, he'll take it. And then they'll put another thing. And then another thing. And then another thing. And before he knows it, and usually it's he, but it could be she, before he knows it, he has gone down a path where he is committing or at least thinking about the vilest of things. He would never have done that before. But it's just this poisonous pornography that introduced him to it. Right? And there was once a man writing, he says, pornography destroyed our family. And I read the title, I thought to myself, is he exaggerating? Like, what is pornography and how did pornography destroy his family? I didn't understand the link. Then he said, right after, he said that it led to my father engaging in child pornography and molestation. And he says, it's because of this. Because he was addicted to it. And he didn't start out like that. He didn't start out like this. But one thing led to the other, and then led to it, and then led to it, because you're always seeking new things, new exciting things, until ultimately you find yourself, or he finds himself doing these things, and he got arrested, the family got destroyed, the mother divorced him, the family broke up. It's this. So it's really vile. And they know what they're doing. and it doesn't really matter to them. And it affects all of society, not only those who watch it, right? It affects women as well, they say. Even if they are not consumers. But because it starts to pervade culture, like you understand pornography is mainstream, right? Like comedy is pornographic. Expressions are pornographic. Mainstream movies reference pornography. So it's mainstream, right? In the vernacular and how people talk and how they act. It says also women, right, who either see these things, not necessarily consume them, but they know what men are attracted to. They begin to mimic whatever they see over there in their speech, in their behavior, and how they dress. They become pornographic in their acts, right? Because they think that's attractive. So it's ruining men, ruining women, ruining society as well. So a person who has not gone into this world, don't get addicted to it, because it's an addiction. Do not get addicted to it. Keep yourself safe. It will deprive you of relationships, of having a good wife, a good husband, of children. It will deprive you of marriage and anything that follows. Right? And if a person is addicted to it, there's a way out. There's a way out. It may take some time. It may take a lot of dua, a lot of patience. But just like any other addiction, bi'idhnillah azza wa jal, if you can stop smoking, if you can stop drugs, if you can stop these things, you can stop that. And there's a way out. But it all goes back to what you look at. And if you can stop looking at a little bit of haram, then pornography is not even an option for you, bi'idhnillah azza wa jal. So don't slide into that behavior, inshallah. So we'll stop here, bi'idhnillah azza wa jal. Let me know if you have questions. Next week, inshallah, we're going to be talking about the thoughts. And that is a lengthier chapter, but it is really important. And there are some important points in it, inshallah. So, bi'idhnillah azza wa jal, that's going to be next week, inshallah. Let me know if you have questions, bi'idhnillah azza wa jal. Yeah, go ahead. Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. So someone is looking at you without your knowledge. Could he envy you? And that's a physical person present. They can, yeah, they can. Even if you, whether you know or not, they can affect you with hasad, with envy, by that look. Does that answer your question? Yeah? Okay, sure. Okay, I have a few things here. What is the quick remedy for a sick or diseased heart for those who have involved in haram look or enjoying looking at other people's happiness through social media, which impacted the person to anxiety other than stop looking? So, so if you're looking at remedies, always one of the quickest things is dua. One of the most important things is dua. If you recognize that you're doing something wrong and maybe you don't have the ability to stop it, what do? So what's the first step? The first step is to ask Allah Azza wa Jal. And to make it a habit of asking Allah, meaning like not I just ask once and I'm done. Like to continuously keep asking Allah Azza wa Jal for it. Just like you want this job, how often do you ask for it? You want to graduate, for instance, and you're finding some difficulty in your studies. How often do you ask for it? So things that you want, but it's not coming your way. How often do you ask? You say, ask a lot. So you take advantage of the opportune, most virtuous times for the acceptance of dua. So you have Fridays, you have nights, you have between adhan and iqama in your sujood. So you take advantage of that and you ask Allah Azza wa Jal sincerely and you keep asking Him subhanahu wa ta'ala for it. Now you say, okay, what other things other than looking? Try to devise alternatives. So instead of this saying to yourself, well, I will not look. Well, you're not going to sit doing nothing. What will you do instead? So instead of not looking, so for instance, let's suppose that you always go online between hour A and hour B. So if you want to limit that, what will you do instead? Will you go outside? Will you exercise? Will you read a book? Will you engage in a habit? Or what will you do? So plan something else to take away from the time that you spend doing things that are not pleasing to Allah Azza wa Jal. And don't be alone, right? Because that's when it typically happens. Don't be alone. And if you see, as the questioner here said, people are enjoying something happy, or they're experiencing some happiness, if you see that and it's causing you pain, causing you anger, causing you envy, immediately make dua for them. Like a lot of dua for them. Not just, Ya Allah, oh no, may Allah bless them and move on. Like, keep making dua. May Allah bless them. May Allah preserve that ni'mah for them. May Allah increase His ni'mas. May Allah protect them from all envy. May Allah, until you find that all the things that you had in your heart are gone. So you're not resisting the fact that they're enjoying that ni'mah, begrudging the fact that they have been blessed. So when you do this, and ask Him, may Allah protect them from the harms of that thing that they just got, and may Allah Azza wa Jal, give them this. And you want to pray for yourself, pray for yourself. But rest assured that whatever you prayed for them, Allah Azza wa Jal also, the angel is going to say Ameen to whatever you also have said, to that they be blessed with. So if you start with dua and then designing your time best, Wallahu alam, that is the first step, bi'idhnillah Azza wa Jal. How to develop yaqeen? Yaqeen develops through knowledge and develops through action. So the more that you learn, the more that you read the Quran, the more that you read the Sunnah, and you know them in detail, and then you take all that and you produce it in actions, meaning in ibadah, the greater your yaqeen is. So continue with your ibadah and continue with seeking knowledge and ask Allah Azza wa Jal for it, bi'idhnillah Azza. Does having connection with the Quran release dopamine also? Anything that pleases you gives you dopamine. Like this is why you become happy, why you become excited. Anything, but levels vary. So when you really read the Quran and you enjoy it, yes, it does. When you play sports, yes. When you eat chocolate, yes. So various things do that, right? So if you are connected to the Quran and you absorb it, of course, the happiness that you feel will be linked to it, inshaAllah. Does that same apply to reading romance and what you talked about? If so, why? So I would say so. So I mean, okay, reading romantic novels is it haram? It says on the basic level of it, you're fine. Basic levels of it. But then think about how often are you spending reading those things? How is it affecting you? How is it changing you? And are you reading something to counterbalance that as well? Right? So if the only thing that you are reading is romance novels, then your head is what? It's corrupted with ideas of love and what love is and how this person who's writing that novel defines romance. So you think to yourself, the way that they describe men, the way they describe women, how love develops, is that real? Is that something that you should expect? Find the flaws that are in it. Because again, it's designed, it's fabricated, it's fiction. Fiction is what? Fabricated. Do things like that happen in real life? Often not. Even the person who's writing about it, just go investigate who they are. Are they even married? Are they even in love? How many times have they been divorced? Are they really happy? Are they writing about things that they believe in or writing about things that sell? Right? It's things that sell. So you just think about, it's an artificial construction. So if you're just immersing yourself in this artificial instruction, your mind is also artificial. It's trapped. So you need to kind of demolish that artificial, building and look at things as they are. And to do this, you need to read non-fiction, or at least if it's fiction that is based on, is uncorrupted, unpolluted fiction. Right? It's instructive fiction. Right? Where you're learning something that is wise. Right? that reproduces, for instance, biographical incidents of someone's life, even if there is some enhancement, but at the same time, it's not very corrupting, it's not very artificial. So I would say that reading romance novels, especially when excessive, is bad. When it's the only thing, it's bad. Right? If there's a balance, I'm not going to say it's haram, but you have to always be aware that you're reading something for fun and for entertainment, it's not real. Don't expect it to be real. Don't expect your man, your woman to act in that way. This is not real. Okay? تفضل. وأما بنعمته. Yeah. نعم, جزاك الله خير. It's a good question, and I don't know if there's always one answer that fits all. It is, how do we balance between avoiding hasad and speaking about the ni'mah that Allah Azza wa Jal had given us? So he says a person could have a newborn, and some people tell him don't share anything about him because what? There's hasad. And on the other hand, he says, وَأَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ. No, speak about the ni'mah of Allah Azza wa Jal. I think there's moderation and there's excessiveness. But also, a person may side on side with caution more than being open. But anyway, there is moderation, and the moderation is, if you were to share it, I would say share it with family, share it with friends. You know how the Prophet ﷺ, he says, when you see a good dream, relay it, convey it to someone that you love, or someone who loves you, right? Because they're not gonna misinterpret it, they're not gonna be envious of it. As Yaqub alayhi salam said to Yusuf, don't tell this dream to your brothers, right? Even though it's a good dream, right? But he said, don't tell it to your brothers. He'll be envious of you. So if you know that the person is good, you have family who are not going to be envious, they're not going to hate that this happened to you, share that with them. If you put it online, I'll be against that. Don't put it online, because anyone could see it. You have a newborn, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. This person had been struggling for 20, 30 years to have a child. Couldn't. He looks at your child, not his intention. You sign the son, the next day he's sick. It's not his intention, but it's human nature. So I think maybe that is a line. It says, do it with those whom you love and you trust. Now publicize it that everybody can see it. Because al-hasad is true. Hasad is real. What about the addiction to anime? Is it not necessarily haram to watch anime, but it's wasting too much time? Is wasting too much time on it haram? The same thing. The same thing. So anime, right? Anime, the problem with anime, of course, and I'm not an expert, right? But there are people who have written on anime. Anime is based, they've said there's some shirk in anime, spirits, gods, this and that. But even if we say that that's not the case, the problem with anime and a lot of, things of that nature is built on fantasy. A lot of it is built on fantasy, right? Built on magical type of thinking. The problem is that if you develop a child like that and they grow up watching it, their mind is expecting this. Magical things to happen, fantastical things to happen. And if they are addicted to it, if that is their world, it's hard for them to interact with people. It's really hard for them to interact with people. And the way that they think about society, about their life, is it's in those terms. In magical thinkings, like they'll be withdrawn, they'll expect great things to happen to them, but they will not know what to do about it. But they'll just imagine, just like in anime, you're this shy, and this is a common theme, right? You're this shy young boy, young female, and somehow something magical happens to you, and you can fight demons, and you can fight this, and you are, the person who will save this universe, and everybody depends on you, and everybody now loves you, and how? But how did this happen? You don't know. But you just simply what? You kind of withdraw and you wait for it to happen. And there's fantastical things, but things are not connected. You don't do things, in order to the outcome to happen. It just somehow falls into your lap. So wasting too much time on it is definitely a problem, but being affected and shaped by it is the greater problem, is the real greater problem. And not that this is necessarily connected to it, but there's a group, a category of men, and maybe that's something that we need kind of develop and talk about. There's a category of men in Japan that are like hermits. I don't know what their name, and if you remember their name, you tell me. They have a specific name to them. It's just hard to remember. They're just home all the time. They just play video games, watch anime, do this. They don't interact with people outside society at all, right? And it's not just one or two. We're talking about thousands of people. And their parents do not know what to do with them. And they're not like teens, 20s, 30s, right? He just cannot function outside the house. So you must understand there's something in the culture, right, that is creating this. And it's not an individual thing because it's a phenomenon, right? So can it be attributed to this? I think to an extent it can, wallahu a'lam, but who knows. This question will take too long. Islamic concept of predestination and free will coexist. We can't. Just simply know the following, inshallah Rabbil Alameen. Qadar, first of all, is one of the secrets of Allah Azza wa Jal, so don't dwell on it too much. Affirm few things and you'll be fine bi'idhnillah Azza wa Jal. Would Allah ask you to do things and punish you for them if you had no free will? Would that be just? He will tell you pray, and you have no will whether to pray or not, and punish you because you did not pray. Would that be justice? Absolutely not. So you know that you have free will, right? If I tell you stand and you refuse, that's free will. No one can impose anything on you, so you have free will. Predestination, do you not know or do not believe that Allah knows everything that you will do? Of course He does. That Allah creates everything? Yes. Do you believe this and that? Yes. Stop. Khalas. That's enough. Right? We don't have time now to go into it, but this is really sufficient. Okay. So he says movies, social media, and shows have really distorted people's expectations of life and relationships. It's a great poison, and we need kind of to deprogram ourselves and deprogram our children. Wallahu a'lam. I think this is it. Maybe we have the first question about celebrating Thanksgiving or not celebrating Thanksgiving. Inshallah, I will defer that to somebody else. So anyone who's sitting here, do you have anything, inshallah, you want to add? You're good? I'm sorry. تفضل. Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. What is, just the first part? What are the practical ways of interacting with women for a man in the masjid? Or school and work and what have you? Muslim or non-Muslim, right? You lower your gaze, especially like in the masjid or among Muslim women who will understand this. You lower your gaze, right? As often as you can. And you are not alone with them. And you talk to them as needed, as necessary. And once that's done, you separate. So you don't engage in idle talk and unnecessary chatter. You just talk about what you need to, and then you finish that and you leave, inshallah. And you try to maintain that as much as you can with also non-Muslim women. So you keep a distance, you keep respect, you're never alone with them, and you try to minimize unnecessary chatter, unnecessary talk with them. And inshallah, you hope for the best as long as that is there and as long as there is respect. But there are certain things that you never cross, which is what? You're never really alone with them. You never touch. You always maintain respect. And you don't engage in intimate talk or that something that could lead to intimate talk. So if you do this, inshallah, hopefully you're within the safe parameters. Bi-idhnillah azza wa jal. Khair, inshallah. Okay, inshallah. So we'll see you بإذن الله عز وجل next week. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك والحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.